Hello, I'd like to welcome you now to the sixth chapter of the book of Micah. But before we go into the sixth chapter, I realize that I made a mistake in the fifth chapter. I made a mistake by leaving out two dative articles with the nouns, and one was in 5:8. You see it right here. Tis is um, the masculine plural dative among the nations, and also in verse 15, the tes ethnicene, the same thing. I missed those two. So now we'll begin with the sixth chapter, and it begins the judgment of the Lord. And here we're going to be going through again the words of Micah the prophet, who is prophesying of the uh, near future and then the far future. And in verse 6, we are going to be featuring the accusative articles when they have an accusative noun that they modify. And here the article is in the lighter blue, and the purple, brighter purple is in the noun. So it begins, accusate thee o Kyrios ipen, anastithi krithiti prosta ori ke accusatosen ivuni phonin su. And the articles in the accusative are tone, teen, and to for the singular, and tus, tas, and ta for the plural. And here we have the ta, so that's feminine plural, the mountains. In the it's not always to me it's impossible to remember all these nouns and which article goes with them. That's the way you're supposed to do it in a grammar class, but as we mentioned, this isn't a typical grammar class. This is a way of going through it and pointing out these grammatical things that coincide to the analytical lexicon of the Apostolic Bible and the grammar of the analytic lexicon, and these nodes that are color-coded. And so to remember all these, take a person with a good memory, but you don't have to, because the analytical lexicon will tell you what it is. And is it really that important to know that a mountain is feminine, and like down here, judgment is also is feminine. So and tone, the people, is masculine. I don't think it's necessary unless you really wanted to get into Greek grammar and delve into it. But so anyway, we'll continue now. Acousate, the akuo. We have acoustics in English with hearing. Hear indeed what the Lord said. Kyrios, Kyria eleison, the derivative. Rise up and plead with the mountains. The ori. We have orography, orology, the study of mountains. And let the hills hear your voice, the phonein, the telephone, the phone has to do with sound. Verse 2, Acousate ori tin krisin Kyriou, ke e pharanges themelia tis gis. Oti krisis to Kyrio pros ton leon avtu, ke meta to Israel dialegthisate. Hear, O mountains of the Lord. And down here you'll see the explanation points. That means that there's a imperative in the verse, and here it is, acousate, hear, imperative. Hear, O mountains, the judgment, a crisis, a point of time when action is to be decided on. And we have, it comes from that word, a crisis, krisin, of the Lord. And there we have the accusative, and the ravines. It should be the ravines, foundations of the earth. I took poetic prerogative to change a little bit, but it's ravines, the ravines, foundations of the earth, the geese. We have the geology. For there is a case, a crisis, crisis. There is a case with the Lord against ton leon. There's the accusative, singular, his people. And with, the laity is the English derivative, and with Israel he will plead. And so the Lord has a case against his people. And Israel in particular, the country in the north, he will plead. This is getting close to the time that Israel is taken away. And then in verse 3 it begins with more or less God speaking in the first person. Leos mu ti api sasi, e ti pariknochlisasi, apokrithiti me. My people, what did I do to you? Or how did I trouble you? Answer me. So God is, this is the words of God. It sounds like his enemy or somebody's uh, spouse that is complaining, and God is saying this to the people. What did I do to you? How did I trouble you? Tell me. For he says, Dioti niga gon se gis Aegyptu, ke ex iku thulias eletrosamin se, ke ex apestila pro prosopu su Moisin ke Aaron ke Mariam. For I led you from the land. The geese, the geology is the derivative. It should have been highlighted maybe. Eccentric, something from the center. I led you from the land of Egypt and from out of the house of slavery. Ihu, economy, is a derivative. I ransomed you, and I sent out before your face Moses and Aaron and Miriam. Prognosis, knowing before. So he's saying he sent these people, and he ransomed them from the slavery that they were in Egypt. They were there for hundreds of years being beaten and forced into slave labor. And God did something to get them out of this. But of course we know when we read the book Exodus that the people complained the whole time and wanted to go back to Egypt. But God has put his heart out towards these people, like he puts it out to us today who are reading this. And and so sometimes we want to complain to God. We're going through these hard things, and but God would say, well, why are you complaining? I basically, the one thing that he didn't have to do anything for any of us, but the one thing that he did was sent his son who died on the cross for us. If God didn't do anything else but just did that one thing, that would be more than anything. That would be spectacular, because we could have a miserable life, but yet eternity, which is a lot longer than the present, would be the result of this sacrifice that his son made for us. And so Jesus could say, why are you complaining about anything? I sent my son to die for you. And he's using that here with the people through Micah. And then he continues in verse 5. Laos mu ministi ti ti evulev sato katasu valak vasalevs Moab. K.T. apakrithi avto valam eos bior, apoton skinon eos tu galgal, opos kenosti e dikiasini tu kiriu. What's he talking? He says, "Oh, my people, remember." Whenever you remember the menistiti, whenever you see this mi, ni, ita combination of words at the beginning, it has something to do with remembrance, and we have the word mnemonics, mini, and of memory. So my people, remember indeed what one Balak, son of king of Moab, planned against you. Cataclysm is an English word. The prefix kata as in English is used, or something against. Who in this Balak, king of Moab? Now you can read about that in the book of Numbers, the 22nd to 25th chapter, and the king of Moab, Balak, called Balaam, son of Beor, from the east to come and curse the Israel, because Israel had come to his land, and they had defeated many nations, and Balak was scared and afraid, and so he had Balaam come, but Balaam said that he could only answer what God told him to do. But then later, Balaam more or less seduced Israel to fall into this, what they call it, the Baal Peor, their behavior, and you can read about that in Numbers 31:14, which I will right here. And it says, and Moses mentions this in Numbers 31:16, for these were the occasion to the sons of Israel by the word of Balaam of their leaving and overlooking the word of the Lord because of Peor, and came to pass the calamity in the congregation of the Lord. So Balaam gave the blessings instead of the curses with the Balak, but then later he caused Israel to stumble, Baal Peor, and go into fornication, from what it says. So so God is saying here, might remember what indeed Balak planned bad, but yet Balaam blessed them, and so that the righteousness of the Lord should be made known. And then he continues, by what entini katalavo ton kyrion, anti lipsome theu mu ipsistu. And this is now not God, but it's Micah is taken over in the 6th chapter and is talking and bringing up his argument. I kata lipsome afton in olokaftomasin, in moskis, in iavsius. So Micah says, by what means should I overtake the Lord? What am I going to do to overtake ton kyrion? There's the accusative, the ton kyrion. The accusative is the object of the sentence. By what means should I as being the subject, overtake the Lord? Shall I take hold of my God, theology, the highest? Shall I overtake him with a whole burnt offering? Olokavtomasi, the Olokav. We have Holocaust, Holocaust, Olokav. There's a similarity in there. With calves, Moskis. We have musk as an English derivative of a year old. And I put the no for explanation rather than yes. And verse 7, it continues. I pros vexate Kyrios in Heliasi, Krion, I in Miriasin, Himaron, Pionon, I tho prototoka mu, I per amartias mu, Carpon Kilias mu, I per asavias psychis mu. These are all questions that he's not going to be able to do anything with God. We can't sit there and bargain with God, although Abraham did with bargained over the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and with Lot being there. But basically, we don't argue with God. It doesn't do a whole lot of good when it really comes down to it, and it'll go in the 8th chapter what God expects. So in verse 7 it says, shall the Lord favorably receive 1,000 heliasi? We have kilo as the English derivative from 1,000. Rams are myriasin. Myriad is the English derivative. A myriasin of hardy winter yearlings? No. Shall I give my firstborn for my sin offering? Well, hyper is the English derivative. No, God doesn't expect me to sacrifice my firstborn son. But this word here, amartias mu, see it says my firstborn. Shall I give my firstborn for my sin? It's a sin offering. And this structure of amartias mu appears over and over in the Old Testament. It's very common and always has to do with sin offering. Other places it's more obvious because it's talking about animals that it's going to be sacrificed. And if you go to 2 Corinthians 5:21, we'll see this structure used in a way that's very famous in the New Testament. And it says, for the one not knowing sin, he made amartian for us. He made a sin offering for us, that we should be righteousness of God by him. Many of the older Bibles said he became sin, so people sit there and try to twist that Jesus became sin, and it's not that. That's the importance of the Septuagint, the Greek words of the Old Testament, giving information for the New. If you don't know the Greek well enough in the Old Testament, it makes it difficult. And I think in this case, the early translators missed something that if they would have had the Greek Old Testament, they would have changed it and made it a sin offering, because it's obvious that's what Jesus was. Becoming sin is really pushing it. There may be some people out there that preach that a long time and not like to hear what I'm saying, that it's you've been preaching something wrong, and probably hear from some people, but that's the way I see it, because it does appear here in so many places, especially when you get into Genesis, Exodus, not Genesis, later with Numbers and Deuteronomy with all the sacrifices, the amartias. Shall I give my firstborn for my sin offering? No. The fruit of my belly for impiety, carpon, we have a carpo for the fruit. The English word for carpo is from this word. For impiety of my psyches, my soul, the psyche is the soul, or the your life is a little bit different. That's Zoe, but soul is the best word I can think of it right now, but from this word psyches. And then he gives the answer to what God wants, and this is a famous verse that every one of us should remember, and it's one of the more beautiful verses in the Bible, I believe. It says, "Apingeli si anthrope ti kalon iti kyrios exiti parasu, al itupin krima ke agapan elion ke etimon ine tu porevseste metatheusu." He explained to you, anthropos, a man, what is good, or what the Lord requires from you, but only to execute, or to do, pien, the poet, we has that word, English derivative, it's to do, krima, equity, to execute equity, and agapan, agape, and to love, eleon, mercy, eleon, the Kyria eleison, eleon, Lord have mercy, and to be prepared to go with your God. Verse 9, it continues, phoni kyriou ti poli epiklethisate ke sosi, the voice, the phony, the phone. We mentioned earlier, like a telephone would be something with sound. The voice of the Lord shall be called in the poli, the city, a polis, metropolis. There's a derivative, and now it's changing to where verse 9, God is now giving this Micah through these words, and God is more or less bringing on now the curse and the bad things that are going on and what's going to happen. The voice of the Lord shall be called upon in the city, and he shall deliver. Sosi, the New Testament, it's used many places, and it has been translated by the earlier translators as salvation, or to save, in the verb form. And I don't see it, because doing the translating the Old Testament as I have, this word appears over and over, and has nothing to do with any type of a salvation going in from life in this earth, and then death and physical death, and then rebirth and going over to the other side. It has just to do with many places just to be delivered, and I've used delivered in the Old and the New Testament. And so this is the word here, sosi, and he shall deliver. Fovumenus, one's fearing, to onoma aftu, the name of his. To is the name, aftu, of his. And I have it, his name. Again, I mentioned these hyphen brackets. And onoma, this is the accusative, the one's fearing his name. Akue phili ketis kosmisi polin. Here, acoustics again, phili, tribe, phylum. And who shall adorn the city? Mi pir ke ikos nomu thisavrizon thisavrus nomus ke meta ivreos adika. Is there not fire? Pyromania has to do with fire. And the house of the lawless one, thesavrizo, we have a thesaurus, a treasuring up of words in that case, but this is a treasuring up, thesavrus, treasuring up treasures of lawless deeds. This was what's going on in the city. And with insolence, unrighteous insolence. Verse 11. E dikeo thesate in zigo anomos, ke in marsipo, stathmia thulu, shall the lawless one be justified by a yoke balance scale? Well, no, he won't. He won't be justified. The zigo, a zygot, is a English derivative of that word. Or by a bag of deceitful weights? No, they're not going to be justified. They're going to be cursed and punished because of the things that they're doing. These right here he's referring to these people selling probably in the markets. There have the yoke balance scale, the balance scale where you have two sides, and one side he had a weight. Let's say it was a pound. You wanted to buy a pound of asparagus, whatever they had there, and he would put his pound weight on, and then the asparagus on the other side, and when they equal, balance it together, then he'd put it in a bag, and you'd have a pound of asparagus. And that weight, a lot of times, was not really a pound. It was like, let's say, 15 ounces. So he made an ounce. So then he put the balance weight down below, and then if somebody else would come over and they'd say, well, I want to sell you some asparagus. I have this much right here. So he'd pull out another pound weight, but this pound weight would be, actually would be 17 ounces, and they would it would show 17 ounces. So when they put the asparagus on there to sell it to the man, when it got to 17, then he'd say, there it is, and he'd give him the money, but it's actually would be it's actually less. They're not really, they're getting cheated out of an ounce. I think I got that right, but this is what this deceitful weights they were doing, buying and selling. And nowadays we have weights and measure in the different states in the United States, and these people come by and check your scales and put the true weight on there, and if you're caught, you get a big fine. But not in those days. They didn't have weights and measures. They just had cheaters. In verse 12, it continues. Ex on ton pluton afton asavias eplison, ke I katikuntas aftin elalisen sevdi, ke I glossa afton ipsothi in to stomati afton, of which they filled their riches of impiety. The Pluton, we have the plutocracy, a rule of the wealthy. Pluto is also the planet Pluto, and means the giver of wealth. It comes from one of the older Greek gods, of which they filled of impiety, and the ones dwelling it spoke lies, the ones dwelling in the city. Psevdi, we have pseudo, is a English derivative of this psevdi, a pseudonym. And their glossa, we have a glossary that has to do with the tongue, speech. Their tongue was exalted in their stomati. No, so that goes back up there is, shall they be justified with all this? No. Verse 13, it continues, Ke ego evasani sase, afanismo diatas amartiasu. And I, the ego, ego is an English derivative, ego, the first person, personal pronoun, and I tormented you for extinction on account of tas amartias su, because of your sins. There's the accusative in the plural, the tas, feminine. Plural, that doesn't really matter, but this is the object of that sentence. I tormented you for extinction because of your sin. 14. Si phagese ke umi emplistis, ke exoso se in si, ke catalipsi, ke umi diasothis, osi ean via sothosin, is romphean paradothison te. All right, and it says here, and you shall eat, and in no way be filled up. So this is what's going to happen to these people in this place that's evil. They're going to eat, but in no way be filled. I shall banish you to yourself, and you shall be forsaken. And in no way should you be preserved. There's the diasothis, the sotho that we had before, where it's salvation in the New Testament. And you can see that sozo and the diasozo in front of it, the delta iota alpha, the dia, one of the prepositions. Prepositions tie into the verbs in many ways. And but the sos, this is the word, the sothis, has to do with the preserved. It's not really saved. Salvation in a way. Will you be preserved? And as many as should be preserved shall be delivered up into the broadsword. So you're not going to be preserved, but if perchance somebody did, then they're going to be given up to the sword and die by the sword. So not a very good outlook for these people that Micah is predicting. In verse 15 it continues, Si speris ke uk amisis, piasis elean ke umi alipsi, eleo ke inon ke umi piise, ke aphanis thisate nomima leumu. You shall sow, but you shall not reap. You shall compress the oil, elean. We have oleo or oil. Our words are derivatives. But in no way should you anoint with olive oil. I could have put olive oil here too. It's particularly is olive oil. It's not any other type of an oil. Some places it may be possibly another type of an oil when it goes in, when you go through all this word and all the places, but generally it's olive oil. It's interesting in the New Testament where it's told elders to come and pray and then anoint with oil. It's actually anoint with olive oil. And now, I'm not saying that if you anointed with different kind of oil, it's going to make it null and void, but let's let you know that this is olive oil. Keinon, vino, we have as an English derivative. I should have highlighted that. Vino, wine. And in no way shall you drink. You're going to compress it, and you're not going to be drinking it. And the laws of my people shall be obliterated. Basically, the laws were obliterated when they went into captivity by Nebuchadnezzar, and then later, after went into captivity for over this 2,000 years with the dispersion throughout the world after the Romans came and destroyed. The laws were pretty well obliterated. The laws are built around animal sacrifices, and you can go to synagogues today throughout the world that I don't think you're going to find a single animal sacrificed anywhere. So the law was obliterated. Their laws are meaningless, really. It's a new religion that's been invented because they have been pushed throughout the world, and they had to come up with something because I guess they didn't want to go into idolatry. But somehow the Jews, the remnant, still they know who God is. They have the Word, the Torah, the Mishnah, and but yet they really don't have the law. They may have the heart for the law, but they really don't have the law until another temple is built in Jerusalem, which a lot of people are looking for to come soon. And there will be built if you read the last 10 chapters of the book of Ezekiel. It gives the dimensions and everything. Continues in 16. Ke ephilaxis ta dikeomata zavri. Ke panta ta erga iku ahav. Ke aporevthi ti en tes vules afton. Opos parado se isafanismon. Ke tus katikuntas avtin is serismon ke onithi leon lipsis the. For you kept the ordinances of Omri and all the works of the house of Ahab. Ta dikeomata is the noun with the accusative. You kept the ordinances and all the works. You kept all the works, panta, pan, pandemic, all has to do with all whenever you see pan. And the ergonomics is the derivative, and that's a noun, all the works of the house of Ahab. Omri, and what does he mean? You kept the ordinances of Omri and all the works of Ahab. Now, I think Micah may be talking directly here to the Israelites who are going to fall. Omri was became king after two previous kings to him quickly died by the sword. The first king, Elah, was a king in Israel, and he became king after the long reign of Asa. And then he reigned for 2 years in Tirzah, and he was killed by his chariot commander while he was drunk. So he was only king for a short period. And then afterwards, Zimri, who was the one who killed him, he was the commander of half the chariots of the army. And he became king then. Elah became, I said after Asa. Asa was actually was in Judah, was the king of Judah. And so Elah became king during Asa's 26th year. And then Zimri in the 27th year of Asa's reign. And he was the ruler for a while. And during this period of time, Omri was the commander of the army that was besieging Gibbethon in Philistia, and he was then anointed king by his people, and he returned against this Zimri, and he took the city and burned the house, and Zimri died, and who was doing evil in the sight of the Lord in the way of Jeroboam his father, and Omri became king, who this is talking about here. And Omri was this commander, and he reigned for 6 years, and he built Samaria up. And it says in 1 Kings 16:25, Omri did evil in the eyes of the Lord and did worse than all who were before him. And so he was just terrible. And then who does he have for a son? And was Ahab, the next king, and his granddaughter was Athaliah, who had all the king's sons killed and became queen of Judah. And Ahab married who? Jezebel. And Jezebel goes down in infamy as the wicked woman that she was. And all the things of Ahab were written down in 1 Kings 16 to 22 and 2 Chronicles 18. You can go there and read all those if you like. And so God was not pleased with these groups of people and the things that were going on up north in Israel. And he continues and says, and you went by their plans, so that I should deliver you up into extinction, and the ones dwelling her for a hissing, and you shall receive scorn of people. So God is going to deliver them up into extinction, which Israel was. It was taken away. Only Judah came back, and the people from Judah. And the ones in her became for a hissing. People went by this area, and even after later it became a hissing when Jesus was crucified and the Romans destroyed it, and the city was something that people talked about, and it's, all the things that happened into it. It's been famous throughout for 2,000 years, and today it's people are talking about it in secret or in a hissing, and more or less is what it's talking about. And right here, one last thing is you'll see the tous katekuntas. Well, tous, you'll know, is mentioned as is an accusative article. But katekuntas isn't a noun. It's a participle. Like I mentioned, a lot of times these articles can be modifying things other than nouns. In this case, it's a participle. So now we have finished the 6th chapter. We'll be going into the 7th chapter and final chapter and the next seminar. And we pray that you have gotten something out of this chapter. There's a lot of things to study between Balaam and Balak, if you'd like, and go into Omri and Ahab and who they were. We'll be going to these people later when we get into those chapters. But we just thank you for joining us, and we'll pray that God would bless you. And we'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.